For introduction, quantitative research, here we have quantitative research, refer to a deductive approach. That means from a very general to a very specific to analyze important issue, right? Therefore, the important issue here is very important. You need to have a research gap. You need to focus on the important issue on the available data. Quantity here may refer to data. That means in your research or your academic paper, right? This quantitative research or quantitative paper more on data, numbers. This number, how can you get this number from? Either from an existing source that other people have compiled, like the statistical department, the World Bank, or you compile through survey and then you get the data in terms of number as compared to qualitative research later on, right? So it involves a combination of method, depend on what is the situation, what do you need, then theory, practical, and knowledge, right? Of course, quantity in this case means data, but we cannot just simply take any data that available and then put in a regression and then just run and then report, right? Because you need to have some issue theory that back up, and then after that, your output or your findings, right, from the research, how is it applicable? Is it useful or not? Let's stop here. Okay. Project objective here, like we refer to what I say is we hope that you can write a full paper, right? And I hope also that you will start thinking of a topic that you may want to start your writing. Then when the training progressing, then you can continue to write, and then maybe at the end of the training you have already written half of the paper, right? And then the second more objective will be that we can collaborate and then joint publication to write one or two paper. And here we got a lot of participants from different background, different experience, right? different knowledge, so we can group together our knowledge and then for joint publication, joint research grant for futures, right? Here in this case, in this morning we'll have two modules, right? Module 1 will be exploring the essence of research. Module 2 will be developing framework. The next two session will be on module 3. Next section will be module 3 and module 4, right? So the module is already given inside the training schedule. Oh, by the way, you already received an email. From an email, I already put in all the material that needed, right? For the lecture slide, I'll post into this empty group at the end of the session. Okay. So far, any question? Because I'm on a screen now, if you post on the question in the chat box, I can see later, or maybe the moderator can help to read out. Okay, we start for module 1. Just a warm up, right? Exploring the essence of research, right? Okay. This model actually just an introduction, a warm up on what is qualitative research, cover what area, what's the requirement, and then I share some of the common flaws. Since I write a lot of papers, some papers, not a lot, then also got supervise some students, right? So therefore, there are some common flaws that always repeatingly every semester or every time. Right? First, research, as mentioned just now, is a scientific. Determine the research. These are 4 topics: defining topic and what defining research. So research is a systematic investigation. We ask ourselves what is the determinant of this one. So systematic here is very important because you need to have a procedure, right? A step-by-step guide. So which one do which one? In this is quantitative research, you not only gather the data, you have to screen through the data, do some prior tests, and then you run the regression. After that, you still have to do a diagnosis test, and then the way you present your result, and then what is the interpretation, all are very systematically. Then it's a structured inquiry with acceptable scientific method. I mean, not just I think it's like that, right? I prefer to be like that. It's really more on a methodology wise, right? Methodology wise, at the last 2 module, I'll try to give you an introduction on how to do a panel data regression. Of course, you still have a time series regression, and then also a survey type question primary data through partial least square, okay, through a scientific method. Then why you want to do the research? Because you want to find an answer, right, for something, for an important issue. Remember earlier we said we have an important issue. For example, why people remain poor, right? How to solve the poverty problem? So you are going to find an answer, right? Then or you want to create a new knowledge, right? Or you want to validate existing knowledge. For example, there's a theory, but this theory may be formulated 100 years ago. Then it'll be different, right? For example, if you do international trade, you have this comparative advantage and absolute advantage theory. But that one may be 50, 60, 100 years ago, right? Then Marshall linear condition all is right? Well, nowadays it may be different. Some people are criticizing the very basic macroeconomic theory like absolute advantage, comparative advantage, because see, the way we trade is different. You have a pressure from the big nation, then you have globalization, you have many other things. So you want to validate as in theory. So you rerun the theory, right? Or with some modification, then that's why you want to do this research, then you have to have some issue. Okay? There are many types of research, but mostly what we usually do, or can you see the cursor here? I think can I? What we usually do, or what will mainly focus on this training will be more on this inquiry mode and quantitative research, right? Of course, you can have application mode. Mostly will be on science, right? They try to apply pure research. You want to find what is the vaccine for COVID, then they're testing, right? Some are descriptive, exploratory, but mostly we are more on quantitative research. Of course, some may be qualitative or some will be mixed, but mostly in this topic will be this training will be more on inquiry mode, quantitative. We are actually asking why, right? Why this thing happens, so we inquire. Okay? So inquiry mode and structured mode, we have qualitative and quantitative. Quantity means mostly based on data. Right? You prove your point using data, right? It's if say a common statistic, your proof is using significant or not significant, right? Versus a qualitative. Qualitative is more on interview, right? Like you see the opinion of many people, right? What do they think? Is this policy is good or not? So mostly on their own opinion that you cannot quantity. But in this case, if you want to use people opinion to quantify people opinion, right? For quantitative data, can you do a survey? You ask them, for example, do you like coffee? Yes, I like. How much you like? I like very much. I love you very much. Then in this case, it's qualitative. But you put a scale. Okay, you like coffee. I give you a rank of 1 to 7. 1 is don't like. 7 is super like, the most like. So how much is your rank or your prefer on coffee? Or maybe 6. How about orange juice? Maybe 5. How about tea? 3. So in this case, you see your ranking of 6, 5, 3 for your preference or your likeness, right? In this case, you become a quantity. It's a number there. I mean, it's a range there. So to quantify something that in nature not like an opinion, then you can use a survey form, put a number for them to do a ranking, and then the number or the ranking you can get is a quantitative data. Okay? So like just now, if you use a survey form to ask the opinion of other people to rank from a Likert scale 1 to 5, 1 to 7, or 1 to 10, like for example, our evaluation also, every time if you're a lecturer, the evaluation, the student will evaluate us. And what is your evaluation on the lecturer? This element, the element they put 1 is the worst, 5 or 7 or 10 is the best. So in this case, it's called a primary data, quantitative primary data survey, right, or research. Secondary data is you already get the data already being compiled. Later on, I have a list. If you download the material that I have provided, you notice there is a list for you to find the common place for you to find secondary data. For example, World Bank database, International Monetary Fund for those who do a finance, right? And then United Nations also have for those who do the trade also, you can have from the World Trade Organization. Many on Malaysia, you want to do something on Malaysia, you will have to go to Statistical Department Malaysia. Some data are free, most data are free, but some data they need to pay, right? Some finance data, I think many finance data you can get from data stream. You got subscribe. Other institutions mostly they also got subscribe, but limited access point. Mm, some are free and some are mostly they are free. Some are need to pay, right? Okay, so different type. So if you do on quantitative secondary data research, right? You have another 3 more type. That means you have quantitative, secondary, time series, quantitative, secondary, cross-section, or panel. Okay. Time series, that means just time only. I mean, one country or one firm, right, over a period of time. In this case, maybe usually it's 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 20 years, right? So just one country or one company, right? One cross section. Cross section is the country or company. Cross section in this case means at one time, right? But many company or many country. For example, you want to do it on, you want to take a particular year, 2007, right, to 2024, but many company, right? Usually, we'll do other time series or panel data. Cross section is less, unless you can get those like happiness index. They are as an international also organization that do a survey on happiness index on every year for many countries, or sustainable development index, right? Every year for many countries. So you just want to focus on that particular year, or you want to focus on few years, but throughout those particular year, right? Then a lot of country, then you do cross section. Of course, you can do cross section for 2 years or 3 years, or then you can compare. But mostly cross section definition in this case mean 1 year. Let's say you want to see the determinant of happiness. You use the happiness index for a particular year, let's say 2023, and then over a lot of country, maybe 50, 60, or 70 countries. So it's cross section. Panel in this case mean combine many country, many years, or many company, many years. So panel data will be sometimes the most common, but I also notice myself do myself be focused on panel data, but I noticed that some of my time series paper they get more citation than panel data. So it's up to your preference and up to the needs of your research. You ask in earlier you say we ask why you want to do it, right? So you want to do it. So your nature of the research maybe include a time series, right? For example, why the poverty rate still remain the same after 30 years. So in this case for Malaysia, so you want to focus on Malaysia only. So and for many years, so in this case, your nature of your research will be on time series, right? Research process, of course, this is a guide, right? So you have a guide through X step of model in 3 phases. First, we must formulate a research problem. Earlier, we noticed that you see you must have an issue, right? Research problem is an issue. We cannot do something that had no issue. For example, you want to research on what is my favorite food. Then it's not a problem. It's not a big issue. You must have important as well. You want to research on what is the determinant of sustainable development? What's the determinant of banking or crisis? Right. So crisis is a big issue, but you want to determine on anything that is something issue for even in medical and engineering also, I think some of participants is from engineering. The research field must be have some issue. For example, let's say that the issue maybe any other medical issue. For example, the survey on the acceptance of COVID medicine, different COVID medicine vaccine, right? Vaccine. So there's an issue, right? You notice that we have a lot of COVID vaccines. Some may prefer this, some may prefer that type, this that time. Then why people prefer this and don't prefer that? Why some other people prefer A and don't prefer B? Why some other people prefer C and don't prefer A? So you want to know, right? What's the reason? So we may do a primary data survey and also the research problem. Okay? So you must have a problem first. After that, you review the literature. literature in this case mean those paper that people already write or the research other already done, right? Just few years ago or many years ago, right? Then you have to look at it first. Why? Because the research problem that you think is a problem or you think is an issue might already been answered a few years ago, right? Or you review the literature, you notice that this research problem may have a may can be seen in a different perspective, right? Or other literature already see this problem that they haven't solved yet. So you or other people already have a similar problem, right? Maybe maybe in Europe, but the similar problem happened in Malaysia that nobody had done this one. So you have to review the literature, right? After that, you have to conceptualize your design. How are you going to do it? So what theory are you going to use, right? Selecting a sample, in this case, include if you do a primary data survey, what sample? You focus Klang Valley, you want to focus on a selected area, for example, Johor Bahru, right? Or because usually you wouldn't say that I want to do a research on Malaysia. You can focus on Malaysia if you have primary data, but you mention your selected sample is Malaysia, I mean you have to have representative or your respondent must come from all over Malaysia. Cannot say you are from Malaysia, but then the respondent come from Klang Valley and then nearby Seremban and Malacca only. So you have to have a lot. So therefore, selecting a sample or what country, right? For example, you want to do on Asian country only. Then of course you have to ask, your research problem is focused on Asia, right? You have to be tally back. Okay? Then some may require you to write a research proposal. If you have a master student or PhD student, you have to present your proposal first, get it approved, then only you can continue to do. Or if you write you plan to write a paper for yourself, right? You mean you are just write the paper, academic paper want to publish in a journal, then maybe you can skip this one because you don't need a proposal, right? Then collecting data, either you download the secondary data from some variable source like I mentioned just now, World Bank, IMF, statistical department of each country, or you do you compile your question, right? Questionnaire, and then you will come back to this one. We will come with more detail on this one in a subsequent module, right? You compile a questionnaire. When you compile a questionnaire, how you formulate the questionnaire is also a need because it's a systematic research, right? The way you format your questionnaire, which data you download, and then even data also got different. Like for example, you say you want to do on economic growth. I want to do on economy output. Economic output can be a lot. Got GDP, GDP per capita, GDP measured in terms of local currency unit, GDP measured in terms of USD, right? Many different. So you have to collect and select your data. Right? Usually, I will advise that practically, of course, you must have a research problem. You must know what you want to research on, right? Why this got this problem? Then how are you going to answer it, right? Then from here, you already know what data you need. So I would suggest that after you do some literature review, you conceptualizing the thing, you quickly go and collect the data. Because you may have a very good research problem, everything very nice, but suddenly you found out that no data, or you need to pay how many thousand of dollar or ringgit to buy the data, then it's not worth it, right? Then you have to your research problem, what have you done earlier, the preparation work is need to be amended again, right? So it's collecting the data first, then analyzing, of course, in the last two module, I'll try to show some of the statistical method in a brief way. Maybe perhaps later in the year, we'll have to conduct a more statistical training, right? Then of course, the last one will be writing the report or writing the paper, right? Writing paper also depend on what paper you would like to write. You want to write a thesis, right? Maybe some of you are doing your PhD, right? Some of you are doing your master, your MPhil student, right? So you write a report, you write a thesis, you have to follow your institutional guideline, right? Some institutional guideline that this chapter 1 have to do what, chapter 2 have to do what, chapter 3 have to do what, right? Then they have used what referencing style. For those who wish to publish paper, you have to target on your journal paper, there are different style, they may have different spacing, all these things minor one. So at the end, you write the report or write your paper. Okay. So far, any question? Any questions so far? No? We continue. Well,
Dr. Ha, actually, there are two questions in the chat box. Shall we have the discussions session between you and the participants during the Q&A session later, or you prefer to answer the question now?
Maybe answer the question, some of the question now first, right? I'm opening the chat box. Okay. Wait, because when presenting, I cannot see the chat box. Okay, let's say, then you will reach a sign in.
It's okay, Dr. Ha. Maybe I can read you the questions, the first question.
Okay. What's the first question? What's the criteria for us to choose the quantitative, qualitative, or hybrid? Is it?
Yeah, correct.
Depend on the nature of research. For example, if you say that we would like to know why people like to choose certain type of COVID vaccine, right? In this case, you need to do a survey. So you do a primary data quantitative, right? Or you want to do what is the determinant of growth? Growth data has already have in the World Bank, so you use the quantitative data. Qualitative is something that it's very hard to quantify. For example, I got come across one who said that matching of the university syllabus with the industrial needs. So of course, you can quantify it. Do a questionnaire. Ask the student. Do you you list down certain criteria? You ask the student to fill out 1 to 7, and ask the industry people to fill out 1 to 7. But at the end, still come back to quality. Like example, I say that does the university syllabus provide enough knowledge or preparation for the student for the industrial work, right? So in this case, you have to match the syllabus with the industry needs, right? Something like that is qualitative, right? I also got do one research project on the issue of the Baixiao relocation school. You remember, if some of you stay in PJ, when Baixiao relocation schools last time, it created a very havoc, right? They asked for, actually in Malaysia, relocation of school is very common, but to know why this school, when it relocate, right, when asked to relocate, become a national issue, right? Including become a racist issue, national, become a very, very big issue and drag on for many, many years, right? So actually, what happened behind? Why all other so many cases of school relocation, no problem, but particularly this school got problem. So in this case, you cannot use quantitative data to justify. So therefore, you use the qualitative law. You have to do ask survey questionnaire, search the newspaper, search the archive, search all the correspondent documents, see what's went wrong, any miscommunication or what happened, right? Of course, hybrid question will be like I mentioned just now, like for example, you want to match the whether university prepare enough students for industrial work, right? So you may on one hand do a qualitative, and on the other hand, you prepare some of the question for maybe student, maybe university management, university lecturer, and industrial expert or industrial organization to answer the questionnaire. So in this case, will be a hybrid. Okay, and is this answer your question? So mostly on what your nature of the research, what you want to do. Right? Remember, your nature of the research, your objective is the main thing, right? The method is just like a transfer. For example, if let's say now you are at Kampa, right? At Kampa, you want to come to Sungai Long. So your objective or the nature of your thing, what you want is you go to Sungai Long from Kampa, right? How you come, how are you going to go there? Then that one is the technique, right? You either use quantitative car, qualitative car, or you transit, right? Or you use in this some also when you do the econometric, you and use A model, B model. It's like you either use car, use bus, use train, use helicopter, cycle, or run, right? So that one is depend on maybe if you are in a rush, then you cannot run, you cannot use bicycle, then you have to use car or use helicopter. So depend on the nature of your research. Okay. Okay, then we go to another question. I have many experience that the flow of research is reversed, whereby the problem occur during the analysis process and lead to a change in methodology and scope in the study. Is it normal? Yes. Yes. It's normal, right? When you have a research problem, when you start to do your research, collect data, and then especially when you analyze your literature, then you notice that you may need to change or slightly modify your research problem, your research, your everything you need to modify here and modify there. Methodology wise, it's all the same, right? For example, you get a data, you plan to use maybe VECM model, then suddenly you do some systematic step by step and statistical step, right? Step by step. Then you notice that, oh, this method VCM you want to run is not suitable for the data that you have. You may have to change the method. Yes, it's normal. Answer one more. I think I'll answer one more question. May I know if for PhD research, I have 5 research objectives, is it necessary good to design one questionnaire for each objective? Or is it better to combine research objective in a questionnaire, then develop it into publication? Would that be possible? If for PhD research, usually 3 research objectives will be enough. But if you want to play safe, then you can have 5 research objectives. But if you use questionnaire, that means in this case, you are using quantitative primary data research. So in quantitative primary data research, 5 research objectives will be more than enough. Each objective you decide questionnaire for each objective. Better not to combine, right? Because you make sure you have 5 objectives. And these 5 objectives must be like different from each other, right? Okay, answer all the question already. So we continue for the last slide, I think. Any other question? We answer later on, okay? Any more other question? Yeah. Last one. Not last one, not for this module. Okay. There are some common flaws, right? That we tend to encounter, or sometimes very experienced researcher also may do, right? So if you're first time to do a research, right, then you encounter mostly encounter this problem. First is weak reason, right? You just do because for if you have supervised a final year project or thesis for undergraduate student, you notice that they ask you to become a supervisor. Then you ask them, what is your topic? They say, I want to do FDI. FDI, what do you want to do FDI? Just do FDI lah. FDI, anything on FDI, is this good or no good? So in this case, you see unclear objective, good or no good. What do you mean? Right? FDI is good for Malaysia, and then suddenly it's also not too good. Then after they talk so long, you still in your mind still what do you want to do? So you need unclear objective, right? Then weak reason. Why do you want to do FDI? Because FDI is important. FDI is important, but it's not a good reason for you to. Yes, you need to do something important, right? For that, it's very important for a country. Or economic growth is very. I want to do economic growth. Economic growth is very important to a country. Is there any reason? Right? Maybe you say that nowadays, right? Fourth industrial revolution, right? You have a different landscape, right? Long time ago, when we have this classic growth theory, you only take into consideration the labor and the capital. But now, after industrialization, then you have a so-called economic complexity lah, digitalization lah, and some more we are at the almost the end to chase the sustainable development goal, right? So therefore, is this sustainable development goal and digitalization, right, or this new era, new things come out, affect the traditional growth theory, and therefore affect the growth determinant of growth, right? It's important for us to have growth, and then our growth is really affected by a new thing that is not captured in the theory. So in this case, you have a good reason, right? Then, of course, incomplete reference prior to research, as I mentioned earlier. I didn't put in full. I mentioned earlier, you may have a very good research problem. Yes, you have an issue, but you need to also do some, at least you go and search some past literature. Why? Because the issue or the research problem or the research topic that you are planning to do may have been done by others maybe few years ago or just recently, right? So you have to do a complete referencing, right? Some of the it's also good to show that you have a good literature review, show that you have put in the effort to know more, and then you can also justify that the research problem that you want to engage on, the paper or title or you want the objective you want to embark on, right, is nobody done before and it's important and it's an issue. You have a good reason also. Okay. Another thing will be lack of understanding on the conceptual and theoretical basis, right? For example, I'll give you some example, right? If you want to do write a paper or do a research on trade balance and a determinant of trade balance, right? One of your determinant, I mean, what factor that affect the trade balance? One of the factor will be exchange rate, right? You just mentioned like that, right? So if you want to do a research on trade balance and exchange rate and growth and whatever other determinant, right? Then you need to mention one theory, right? If that theory is not mentioned, show that your understanding of economic theory is not so good, right? So if you want to do a trade balance and exchange rate, you have to mention Marshall linear theory. Then since you have this Marshall linear theory, already a theory or someone done before many times, why are you going to do it again? Then they come back to the reason, right? Maybe you say that Marshall linear theory only mentioned a linear relationship, right? Here, I suspect that the relationship is not linear. That means if the exchange rate increase and the exchange rate decrease, will give you a different impact, right? So, like they have this saying so-called go up like a rocket but come down like a feather. I mean, if you have a linear relationship or the theory predict a linear relationship, I mean, go up is the same, come down is also the same, but here you think that it's different because of sticky price theory or whatever. So you need to have a theoretical basis. In this case, it's a Marshall linear theory that guide the relationship between trade balance and exchange rate, right? But then already got a theory, why you want to do it again? So you have to give a reason that you think this theory actually change, right? Why change? What is expect to change? It's not currently or practically, it may not be a linear or as simple as the theory has mentioned. In this case, you have a non-linear relationship. So at least you have a conceptual and theoretical basis. So why you think is a non-linear? Then you give some experience, right? For example, after exchange rate depreciate already, then it's hard for this or the commodity nature is no more tradable. Some are now branded. So you give a lot of conceptual and theoretical basis. Okay? Then, of course, another one will be selected model based on convenience, right? Or selected the variable based on convenience. For example, what is topic you want to do? Growth lah, determinant of growth. Why? Everyone also do growth, easy to find the data. So what is the factor that you think will affect the growth? I don't know. I just see whether the data what I can find and then I just download and then I do. So based on convenience is not acceptable lah. So you must based on theory and issue. Issue means the research problem that you get. You will do something on issue, right? Something. So these are some of the common flaw, or maybe some of you can share the common flaw that you come across, right, when you yourself are doing, or you come across or any experience, and you can share with each other. Any questions so far? Some of the reference, there are a lot of reference that we can do.
There is one. Jeremy, there is one. Can I ask about the thesis? Is there any minimum for the research objective and research questions? Is the thesis good for 2 objectives and 2 questions?
No. Usually for undergraduate to PhD, put undergraduate to master to PhD, the common practice will be three research objective, three research question. Here in this case, the research question, research objective is matched together. I mean, you have three research objective, then you have three research question. Theoretically, we used to say that we have a three research question, so that our research or our paper actually will answer these three research question. So we have three research objective that match together, right? So minimum, preferable or minimum, you get three lah, right? Any other question? Oh, I think it's question 9. Any other question?
Dr. Ha, so far this is the last one at the moment.
Okay. Okay. Then we continue. Can see the slide, right? So before we have a short break, and then also a group photo. There's an assignment here, but it's a lot of participants here online. Okay, I share the assignments first. This assignment, you may do it individually. As I mentioned just now, the two objectives of this training, first is that you can start writing your thesis, or those who don't have a title yet, you can start have a title, and then start writing your paper, right? If you start to think of you want to think of a new title, you can usually use from broad to specific, right? If you do on economics, you can go for this Journal of Economic Literature. You can see there they are like broad category, like G financial economic G, and then to G2, G2, then G21, G22, G23, like that. For general term, right? For general, you see, let's say you want to do something on financial economics or finance, right? Financial economics. Then within the scope of financial economics, there are a lot of things on financial economic, banking, insurance, right? Monetary policy. So you may want to choose financial institution and services, right? Within financial institution and services, you may want to, because many people done already banking, so you might want to do something on non-banking financial institution. So you see, you getting from broad to specific to more detail, right? So you want to do on bank and non-bank. So therefore, in this case, you may end up coming up with institutional quality, financial factor, and shadow banking. So you might want to choose financial factor and shadow banking, because mostly people do on bank, insurance, financial institution, monetary policy, but not much do on banking, shadow banking, and then on institutional quality. So therefore, from the very broad, you can become more specific, right? So here you can think of like that. So after you think of your research area that you want to do, right? Okay, you want to do something on shadow banking, then you have to answer these three questions, right? Based on your topic that, or the area that you want to choose, right? For example, you have these three questions. What is the issue? Can you see the this one, right? This one I put in the material folder. You can download, right? The task. So what is or are the issue that motivate your research? Can be one or can be two, right? Issue. The first question actually is your research problem issue. As I mentioned before, in your paper, in your thesis, the most important thing is issue, not the method, right? Like if you are in Kampa, right? You want to go to Sungalong for what? Any reason? Oh, because I have an important meeting, right? Or why you want to choose Sungalong? Because I have important meetings in Sungalong, right? You will never say, you have some purpose to go there. How do you go there? It's not really that important, because how you go there, you depend on what you want. You want to be fast, slow, or I want to enjoy the scenery between Kampa to Sungalong. So in this case, I better take maybe a bicycle. I want to exercise as well. I'm exercise alcohol as I like to exercise. So, or you want to take a train, or you want to take a bus, or you want to be convenient, and then you take a car. So the method come later. The most important thing is issue, right? Why you want to do things on shadow banking. Is there any problem in shadow banking? Right. For example, you cannot say that I want to do a research and see whether the sun actually rise from the west or from the east, because the sun guarantee rise from the east. If the sun rise from the west, I think there is a very big disaster, right? So no issue. Even though it's very important for the to know the sun must rise from the east, if not, then the whole world I think will be disaster, right? But no issue. Almost 99.99999% you rise from the east, right? So no issue. So you must have some issue. This issue should be more relevant, current, and what to say, in nationwide or countrywide important, right? Important, for example, important like growth issue, all this thing, and then it's something that new. Yeah. Then second question, what are the differences between your research and the past literature? So you answer the second question here. It's very clear cut that you are doing your literature review. But here I ask you to answer these three questions first, because like provide a framework, or provide a short insight for you to before you start writing, right? What you have researched. What's the difference between your research and past literature? Maybe past literature, for example, I've done something on income inequality, right, for my PhD. Then my supervisor say income inequality already so many people done so many times. Why you want to do it? What is the difference between yours one and the previous one? Right? My one, actually, I do on extreme income inequality. I use the normal one, the past literature, they do income inequality, I use the aggregate inequality, but I use the extreme income inequality. Then come back to this issue. Why? Why you want to do extreme income inequality? Is there any particular reason you want to do extreme rather than follow the normal one, do aggregate? Because first, you see that some of the cases, for example, in Indonesia, there are social riot in Indonesia because of extreme income inequality between any group. But during that time, you notice that Indonesia Gini coefficient, the index that used to indicate the common index to indicate aggregate inequality, is completely good, no problem. But how come got this inequality issue until become a national issue, social riot? Because of extreme inequality. And another issue is nowadays you notice that not only nowadays, few years ago, the government policy more target on the B20, B40, then they tax the thing also more on T20. They do not just say inequality. So the policy, they are more on targeted policy. In Malaysia, also you heard that they're targeted subsidies, right? Targeted tax, right? No, the policy nowadays go to targeted for the lowest and the highest. So in this case, justified the issue that now we move from overall aggregate inequality to extreme inequality. That means extreme between the top and the bottom. So you need to have an issue and you need to have some differences, right? Of course, if you are undergraduate, you just make sure one of your determinant, let's say Y inequality is a Y, or dependent variable, your independent variable, you just choose any one that is not other people, some are not other people didn't done before, then should be okay lah. But in terms of master, postgraduate, and PhD, then you need to very go back, focus on the issue, right? Then what are your main contribution? I mentioned. So if you answer this question is okay. After you done you choose your topic, and you got the issue, right? But nobody done before, right? You do a quantitative regression, you get your result or your findings come out already. Now this finding can be used for what? Is this useful or for fun, right? If your finding come out is okay, I get this result is positive relationship, negative relationship, no relationship. After that, for what? For nothing. In this case, no contribution. So you must have something, right? For example, you read the shadow banking, for example, you notice that here you can see whether this industry actually are proactive in risk management or not proactive in risk management. Then whether whether traditional banking and shadow banking actually are related or not. So in this case, if they are highly positively related, shadow banking is usually very hard to regulate. There's no less laws or less stringent requirement to regulate the shadow banking. But if traditional banking and shadow banking are interrelated positively, then you no need to regulate the shadow banking. You regulate the traditional banking already more than enough for you to regulate the shadow banking. Right? So there's a policy implication. Right? So what are your main contribution? You're focused on after you run the result, you get your result, right? What your result can help the country or the policymaker or some stakeholder. So you try to this one, but I think too many of you, or maybe later on you'll see any volunteer to present your topic, or some of the postgraduate students, maybe you can propose your topic, then we can have a discussion. It's helpful to you also, right? Any questions so far? I check back, see any other question? Any question? I see one question. Can we obtain statistical evidence from government authority as support for problem statement? You can obtain some of the, let's say, government authority claim that there is this issue, then you can have, for example, in Malaysia, targeted subsidies, right? Okay, is important. Or some you may see that some people don't like the targeted subsidies, some people like the targeted subsidies. If you have a government report claim that these targeted subsidies get a mixed response, so you may want to embark on a quantitative primary data research on the acceptance of these targeted subsidies for petrol price among Malaysian citizens. So you can get some evidence from global authorities. You may get also evidence like, for example, there is an issue of food crisis. You get it from the United Nations, right? It's a serious food crisis. Then if the world didn't do anything, or you nowadays I think you heard that there is a global warming, right? If we do nothing or even worse, right? After 10 years, there will be the temperature will increase how much, and then it will be very hazardous for for us to live here. So you get this statement from expert from United Nations, right? Their own writing, their own expert. But of course, you won't get it from blogger or anyway ABC, right? So if you get it from a reputable source, right, from United Nations, from a government authority, show that there is this issue like global warming, right? Then you can this global warming become your broad objective, right? Let's say you go back this one become your broad broad area to focus on. Then you try to see global warming more specific and more specific and more specific until you come up with a very specific objective. Right? We shall continue for the second module on developing the framework. So for this module, actually explain how the framework is like when you build a house, you still need to have an architect to draw the house plan, right? You cannot, you want to do a Lego also, you must in your mind, you want to build anything, right? So you have an effective framework. So framework in this case include formulating research problem, as mentioned already in the module 1, setting objective, applying relevant theory, and identifying relevant variables, right? So mostly all this also already been introduced earlier in module 1. So in this module 2, developing the framework, we will focus on these 4 items: research problem, research objective, theoretical framework, and identify variable. Research objective in this case, we have to tally back with your research question. Theoretically, we do a question first. When you have a question, then you only try to find the answer. So your objective is to find the answer. If you have 4 for thesis, it's preferable to have 3. For quantitative secondary data, that means you download data from World Bank, IMF, statistical department, it's preferable to have at least 3. even for undergraduate, master or PhD. But if you want to do for quantitative primary data, I mean for survey, it's recommended to have more than 3, maybe perhaps 4 or 5 objectives, right? Especially for your PhD thesis, because sometimes you collect questionnaire survey, they may tend to have problem here and there. And once your questionnaire collections completed, maybe you collected 300 questionnaire or 500 questionnaire, something wrong somewhere, right? Then you cannot go back, right? If secondary data, you can still collect back. Maybe you take 1 hour to recollect back all the data, or collect data need 1 hour. But for questionnaire survey, once done, then it's like that, right? Cannot have any problem. But in practically, sometimes we set the research objective first, and then only we form the questionnaire. Okay? Then you have the theoretical framework, and then identify the variable. Okay? First, we formulate research problem. Research problem is very important. Research problem you see as an issue. When there is an issue, then there is a problem, right? So broad problem or issue, for example, broad problem or issue that warrant more in-depth investigation. You start with a broad problem, like acceptance of this COVID vaccine brand A, right? Why people are willing to accept, and why people are reluctant to accept, right? For example, the issue on growth. Why certain country, right, has higher growth, but certain country has lower growth, even though they look like the same. For example, Malaysia and Singapore, just neighbor. Last time Singapore is part of Malaysia. How come Singapore can grow so fast and Malaysia grow so slow, right? And how come this different? Why? So you have a broad problem, like mentioned earlier in the module 1, right? You start with a broad problem, and then you try to specific it until you get a overall objective. And from the overall objective, you have three specific objectives, right? And then from overall until more in-depth investigation. Consideration. What is a consideration for you to do to formulate a topic, to find an issue, and then do objective and write your thesis or write your paper? First, of course, interest. You may want to do on something that is a good issue, then you can find the data, you think it's easy, but you may not have interest. But maybe because you just want to finish your thesis, and then you get your master or you get your PhD. Yes, it's still okay, but you might do it in a more enjoyable way, right? So you may find whether what is your interest. For example, if you are from engineering, you are from chemical engineering, or you're from a mechanical engineering, then you force yourself to do economics topic, then you may not have interest, right? So it's better to choose something that you are interested in. And why? Because if you have interested on this particular topic, that means you already know much more thing than other people on this particular topic. So you have your expertise there, right? Sometimes it's also important to have some expertise there, right? For not only for you to easier to do things, but once you write a paper or you write a thesis that match your expertise. So when this thesis or this paper actually published, if you're going to do your PhD, you're teaching finance, so you do some PhD topic or you write a paper on finance, you get it published. So after that, if you're a lecturer, right, then in your CV or in your profile, you already publish many areas on this finance, which is your expertise, right? Rather than you publish on varieties of areas that is not your expertise, then in this case, it's actually enhancing, right? And of course, you must have a gap or magnitude. Magnitude is important, right? Your topic or your paper, right? Something current, hot topic, and important. When I submit paper for publication, sometimes I noticed that those current issue, like I mentioned to you, sustainable development goal, but nowadays getting lots that hot compared to 2-3 years ago. Now maybe inclusivity, AI, disruptive technology, climate change, right? When you submit paper and you do a research on this topic, has a higher magnitude and higher success rate to acceptance. And your thesis, you may do a thesis, or maybe you do a PhD, you may take 4 years, 3 years, or 5 years. You try to do some issue that is just current and still hot after 4 years, 5 years, then actually a win-win situation for you. Maybe you will take 3 years to finish your topic. By the time of 3 years, the topic already been obsolete, then it's no point, right? So you choose something that important, right? You have a gap and preferable to have hesitate. And most importantly, also you must have data, especially those who plan to do secondary data. Try to find data first, because as far as from my experience, you may need sometimes you're quite good. You take half an hour, you can see what data you can have, right? Or you take 1 hour, you can go and download all the data that you are needed. Just the problem is you download the data, the raw data, you need to rearrange the data according to the statistical software format. I mean, you have to do the data you get from World Bank actually is horizontal one, right? But the data in the Stata software is vertical, so you have to rearrange, right? Or some missing whatever. So you have to make sure data first. You spend another 1 hour or 2 hours to go and find the data. If they got data, everything got, and only do. Another more important, equally important issue is ethical issue. Nowadays, you see, especially if you do survey questionnaire, right? You do secondary data, is not ethical issue is not a big problem, because secondary data do not involve anything. The data already been published by reputable source. So data again, take the data from reputable source, right? World Bank, IMF, Bank Negara Malaysia, Jabatan Perangkaan Malaysia, or Statistical Data Malaysia. That one is reputable, right? Don't take from other thing, right? Yahoo, or Google, or some other people. So you must make sure. Then of course, when you publish, the data already be uploaded in from a reputable source, then ethical issue mostly is clear. So ethical issue mainly apply to survey, right? Every institution nowadays, they require those who do the survey or primary data to submit the ethical clearance form, right? So that your survey form will not touch on issue, right? Later we'll come back on this one primary data survey later on. You notice that if you do survey for European country, or you submit a paper to a European or the American journal, they will ask you to fill up a form, right? Some of common example is your gender, yeah, male, female. But you go to submit to European, there you also have many other options, like binary lah, non-binary lah. But in Malaysia, you cannot put. So you can only put either female or male, or you want to put, you put another one, cannot put yang lain lah. You can only put do not wish to disclose. Right? Otherwise, you will have an ethical issue, because it's not compatible to Malaysian law. Right? So all these things, of course, you have to submit the ethical clearance to your institution. So if any other problem, your institution will remind you, oh, this question cannot touch on sensitive issue. It's violated the ethical laws, right? Then you can have a guided 7-step in formulating research problem. Okay? So first, you identify the main subject area, right? Again, from the broad to a sub area, right? Then selected sub area of the most interest. There can be different sub area, right? Then you select the most interest one. Even though in science, engineering, chemistry, psychology, economics, finance, management, sure have one big area and then certain sub area, right? Then raise the research question, right? What is the problem? Any issue? Again and again and again, issue is important, right? Your whole paper, your whole thesis, or your whole research must be based on issue. You cannot do something that is no issue, or the answer is very clear cut. For example, the sun rise from the east. It's very clear cut, right? Or no issue. Or for example, I want to see what is my friend's favorite color. So it's not a global issue. And so we must have a important magnitude, important issue. And formulate your objective. You have to break down your objective into a very specific, right? Later on, we will see you have use a smart way, SMART, right? Specific, measurable or the objective. Then you assess the objective, and then double check. Okay? So mostly you can say that you must have an issue, and you must know what you want to do based on your expertise, right? From a very broad one, right? If based on your interest, you know that, oh, there are certain areas that actually still debating, right? A lot of question but no answer yet. So then that is good, because you are going to do a research and provide the answer, right? And that is the answer that everybody are actually waiting for. So you have a very good magnitude, interest, then issue, right? Of course, if no data, you can embark on qualitative, or then you must have something to do and not clash your ethical issue lah. Okay. Yeah. My slide cannot move. Next, setting research objective. As I mentioned just now, you need to have a SMART goal, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, then reliable and time bound, right? Your objective, you cannot set the objective. For example, your master or PhD, or your master thesis, right? Master thesis, you have a maximum duration of your candidature. You cannot try to do a research that are going to win a Nobel Prize that take you 20 years. So to achieve, right? Cannot. So you have to be a specific time bound, specific, right? All these things measurable. You need to be able to measure. Right? For example, you say, I would like to see how good is this coffee. Then how do you mean how good is coffee? So you have to have something more specific and measure. So objective is what? Is a goal to attain, right? You have issue. This issue create a lot of question, right? Usually a general issue, but in general issue you can subdivide into a very specific one. Even though a specific one will give you some specific question, and you want to answer that question. So what you want, what you are aiming at will be your main and sub-objective. Okay? It's a goal to attain what you want. Okay? It's your objective. Each objective contain one aspect, numerically listed 1, 2, 3, right? Matching hypothesis and research question. Okay? Practically, we will try to think and list down our objective first. Then we will create our question and then create our hypothesis. Right? Hypothesis question is just make a question. Hypothesis just you have two hypotheses. One is hypothesis null and one is hypothesis alternative. The hypothesis null NUL is basically just like no relationship. Hypothesis alternative means has relationship. So in this case, there is some, not to say minor, some technical issue here. If your hypothesis now say has relationship compared to has positive relationship, or compared to has negative relationship, actually technically you will have a different implication. Because if you just say have relationship, let's say X and Y has relationship, that means they can be positive, they can be negative, right? So there's a two-tailed test in terms of statistic. If you say has positive relationship, then in this case, has positive relationship, then it's correct. If no relationship or negative relationship is considered not to say considered, that means it considered reject the H1, right? So it's a one-tailed test. Two-tailed test and one-tailed test, they got a different critical value, different critical value for significant or not. Usually we just say has or has, usually you say has relationship, we don't specify whether positive or negative lah, because your outcome may be positive, may be negative. And if your outcome is not significant, that means it's back to the null hypothesis. So you have no relationship, right? So set the SMART goal. And then, of course, when you formulate your objective, you should start with an action word to find out, to examine, to analyze, right? Or to determine. If you familiar with the Bloom taxonomy, preferable to use the C4 and above for your objective. That means analyze, right? Synthesis, mostly C4 will be enough lah. Analyze, to examine, to determine. Do not use the C3, C1. Right? I mean, your objective shouldn't be to list down the factor or to describe something, right? That one is more on C1 and C2 level in the Bloom taxonomy. Usually you try to go to a C4, you can Google Bloom taxonomy C4. What's a keyword to examine, to find out, to analyze? You will start with this thing and to examine the relationship between X and Y. Okay. Next, you should have a theoretical framework, right? Of course, some research may not have a theory, but if really some research do not have a theory, you try to justify with some rationale, right? And most research have some theory, even though for primary data research, you have, I see mostly from the management research, you have this UTAT theory, you have this expectation gap theory, yeah, other many theory. Economics also, you have even more theory, right? For engineering or for chemistry, for psychology, I think you have theory for engineering and chemistry, maybe for medical. That one, I'm not sure you have what theory, but at least for engineering, you have your own engineering theory, like chemistry theory, right? Or biological, you have your own theory. So you should have try to base on some theory, right? Again, you either want to verify your theory, you claim that the theory is not correct, or you based on the theory, you try to find out something, right, new, right? So what is theoretical framework? Is a set of concept, idea, and assumption to understand the phenomena or the problem, right? The research problem, right? So you want to do something on growth. So we must set some assumption and the idea, right? Explain the relationship between variable. So this theory will explain the relationship between, let's say, X and Y, X1 and Y, X2 and Y. Like mentioned earlier, trade balance and exchange rate. You have a Marshall-Lehner hypothesis or Marshall-Lehner theory to explain between exchange rate and trade balance. So identify key concept and relationship. Right, this is what we are going to do later on in detail. Review literature and this one. Okay. First, identifying variable. Right. So see, quantitative research, you use data, right? You use variable. You have a quantitative model. Quantitative model in a common or in a general way is like Y. Y is your dependent variable. I mean, this variable will be influenced by other variable. You usually use X to become independent variable. So in this case, you assume that X is independent from any other thing. So let's say you have Y, X1, X2, X3, X4. And let's say X1, X2, X3 lah. Y, X1, X2, X3. So all the X1, X2, X3 are independent variable. Right here, type of variable. Y are dependent, X your independent variable. Independent here means this X1, X2, X3, they are not affected by any other. But the Y is the dependent variable. The Y actually affected or dependent on the X, right? The independent, the X1, X2, and X3. Therefore, this is your assumption, right? But if you test your data and you notice that X1 is not independent, X1 is affected by X2, then how? So here you have this so-called multi-collinearity problem. That one you cannot. You have to choose if X1 is very strongly affected by X2. That means X1 and X2 are not independent anymore. So you have to choose either one. Right? So this is the assumption that you use. Okay? Later we go about this one. So when you identify variable, you identify a concept that can be measured. Here you have to differentiate. For example, you want to measure rich and poor, right? How do you measure rich and poor? You use income per year. I mentioned earlier, you want to measure inequality, right? Inequality is a concept. Inequality means some people very rich, some people very poor, right? But how do you measure inequality? In economy, we have this called Gini coefficient. It's an index. Gini coefficient index is an index people calculate and then uploaded in World Bank. Right? This index actually measure income inequality. Right? If perfectly equal, it's 0. If perfectly not equal, it's 1. So if you get 0.7, that means very unequal. But not perfectly unequal. If you get 0.4, 0.5, usually 0.4 to 0.5 is acceptable. because you don't expect a country they have 0.1, 0.2. So Gini coefficient is the proxy for income inequality that can be measured. The concept is inequality. The Gini coefficient is a proxy. If you want to do extreme income inequality, you may want to take the income of top 20 divided by income of bottom 20, right? So if income of top 20 is divided by income of bottom 20 is 3, that means income of top 20 is 3 times more than income of bottom 20. Right? So in this case, also you see rich and poor is a concept. Income per year is a proxy or can be measured. Right? Economic economic output, you can use growth, GDP growth or GDP, GNP, GNI, gross national income, all are measured economic growth. Okay. Then for quantitative primary research, that means you are doing questionnaire, you are giving up survey, and then you have this called moderator and mediator. Later on again, okay. So moderate and mediator even for secondary data also. For example, you can also do a moderator effect. For example, let's say X, Y, and X got relationship, Y and X1. Then maybe Y X1 times B, for example. Okay, let's say like that lah. Let's say number of hours study is your X1, independent variable. Number of hours study is independent, right? Your result, your CGPA is dependent variable, your Y. Mean your result is depend on how many hours you study. Correct? So hours of study is independent, your X, your result CGPA is your Y. But this relationship, of course, you expected, or maybe there's some theory or some logic will say that expected that when you study more, you put in more hours to study, you can expect that your result or CGPA will get higher. So it's a positive relationship, right? But this positive relationship might be affected by your maybe IQ, right? Some people are very smart, fast learner, right? They put in 3 hours, they can improve much more compared to slow learner. They need to put in more hours. So the IQ could be the moderator, right? So different people put in same hours but different outcome. So it's like that. For survey data also usually you use also mediator, right? For survey data, you try to have this nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, right? Usually we won't do nominal, we either do the interval ratio. Something that, or for example, if you have a survey, you cannot measure like male or female can be maybe not directly they can be act as a moderator or mediator, cannot be directly affected. You cannot say that okay, 1 I put is male, 2 I put is female, right? So in this case, you think this thing can only be done as moderator, cannot be done indirectly. Something that cannot be measured, cannot be ranked, right? We'll come back later on this one, okay? The skills. Any questions so far? A bit fast. Any questions so far?
There's questions in the chat box.
Oh, I'm going to see the question first.
Oh, I think this one just now already answered, right? For the theory framework.
Yeah, it's okay. What is the best way to do a theoretical framework? Especially there's a limited period study one, right? Oh, here is what because I will try to do a practical approach lah. The best way to study theoretical framework is to use Google. But of course nowadays you must say you want to use ChatGPT lah, right? So here you listen first. Let's say you want to do a study on 2 variables, let's say Y and X1 and X2 and X3. Right? So you Google, let's say trade balance and exchange rate. So you Google trade balance and exchange rate relationship. You just Google like that, theory on trade balance and exchange rate. So the Google will come out a lot of things. I usually will do like that lah. So you want to Google income inequality and and political stability. So you Google in theory on income inequality and political stability. When you Google, then you come out a lot of things. Of course, you have to filter lah. But nowadays, I think you got ChatGPT. You can just Google what is the theory between that link, income inequality and political stability. So you Google and then they'll come out. They'll give you some answer. So from there, not asking you to copy and paste, but from there, at least you can have some head start and you know what is expected, and then you can continue to search and understand more on the theory they provided. Maybe they provide 3 or 4 theory, maybe 1 or 2 is correct. And use Google or ChatGPT for a head start lah. Right? How to form extended framework from a theory and how to combine few theory in our study. What is the exact step to form this extended framework or combined theory? Any suggest article to read? For me, combine extended framework. For example, if let's say you use growth theory lah, I'm not sure you're from economic now. If let's say economic, they use growth theory, then economic growth, right? You can extend. Usually in this case, you start from the very basic classic growth theory. Classic growth theory, that means you can produce more output if you put in more labor and you put in more capital. So classic growth theory will have capital and labor, right? Then later on, they extended to new classic theory or endogenous growth theory. They mean that labor, not only quantity of labor, quality of labor is important. Therefore, they add on education or so-called what is called human capital or productivity. Therefore, you add in the number of schooling days, the tertiary education enrollment. But then you can add on current situation. For example, I got one article add on sustainable development goal. Is it that the country trying to achieve sustainable development goal affected the economic growth or not? Or digitalization? Can digitalization I mean that extended from the group model is you add on the impact of digitalization, will it make a difference? If digitalization do not make any difference, that means the statistical result you come out will be not significant. If not significant, that means that the relationship is 0. That means the number, because quantitative, the number you can get or the coefficient you can get is equal to 0, right? Statistically equal to 0. So you can extend from that one. Combine of theory, you may test. Usually combine of theory, you may try to find 2 different conflicting theory. For example, government budget deficit and private saving, right? Actually, they got 2 contradictory, completely opposite theory. One say that when government expenditure higher, then you got more economic growth, you got more income, so you will spend more, you save less, right? Another theory, the current equivalent theory, said that when the government spend more, budget deficit, you expected the government to tax you back higher in near future because this deficit is financed by loan. So you will like sediakan payung sebelum hujan, you will try to save more for future tax. So you see 2 conflicting theory. So which one is correct? So you can also combine theory like that lah. Yeah. Or any other theory that you combine, then it depend on your expertise, depend on the literature review that you search, and then depend on other, I mean the field, the research problem and the field itself lor. Okay. Any other question? Because we didn't have a lot of time. Any questions so far? Any postgraduate student willing to share your topics, or anyone want to propose a topic so that you will start writing a paper? No? Okay, no, we go to this one. Yeah. Hey, can you still see the screen? Yeah, I cannot, my mouse, wait, go on. This brainstorming section, I think will be hard. I think we can do on this complete task assignment. Any more question first? No? Anyone wish to present your topic? Anyone will present your topic and then answer these 3 questions? No. Okay. Maybe you want to, this one, you can do your at home lah. You read from these 2 articles, then you try to fill out the crossword puzzle. Okay. Here you see the effect of the 7 development. For this one, my answer to the extended framework, here sustainable development goal and inequality to growth, like just now. You read this article, I start from a very, very basic classic growth model and then extend. Maybe I can show you the article. I can show you the article is easier. Wait, this one is article 3. Okay. Maybe I show you the article so that can see? Can see the article? How come this one is only one page only? Oh, I think I'm going to send you another new one. Later I update the article. This one is 1 page only. 1 page only. I think I update the article inside there. I find back the. Wait, okay. Can you see the article? Can? Hello. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then we do one by one. So you see, because it's quantitative. Quantitative you involve number, data, right? So these are the variable that is chosen, right? This GDP chosen for output, right? Again, you see, if you say sustainable development is a concept, right? Mostly people actually misconcept this sustainable development. It means sustainable development they equal to environment pollution, emission of carbon dioxide. I mean, if lower carbon dioxide emission is sustainable development. But here, for me, the best one is the Sustainable Development Goal Index, because this Sustainable Development Goal Index actually are the official index to measure the achievement of each country, the achievement of the SDG goal by each country. So it's the United Nations Compound Index, is an official index, and it's a more holistic because it's actually measure how this country, how many percentage this country achieve the SDG goal, right? So sustainable development is a concept. Sustainable Development Goal Index is the proxy or the measurement for sustainable development. Okay? Then this worldwide governance indicator is a proxy to measure institutional quality. Okay? So these are the measurement and the description. Okay, so where you can get from source World Bank. Usually World Bank actually got a lot of data you can get from there, and it's free. Okay? So the data description, right? What is a proxy for what is the concept? Okay? Then you see, firstly, this one is equation 1 is on a classic growth model, just a very simple capital and labor. And of course, it will include the export, right? You have an open economy. Then you have a equation 2. You see, equation 1 is a classic growth model. You can see equation 2 is your extended, become the endogenous growth model. then you go to add on human capital. Again, human capital is the concept. I mean, labor is just a quantity, number of labor, 10 labor, 20 labor, 30 labor. But your 30 labor may not be as good as another people 30 labor, right? So their productivity, their quality of the labor. So human capital. So endogenous growth model include human capital. Human capital is a concept. How do you proxy or the measurement? Last time you noticed the researcher 50 years ago or 40 years ago, they use enrollment in secondary education, right? Mean that higher the enrollment in secondary education, you consider as a higher human capital, right? At least you have a skilled labor that assume. But nowadays, human capital are proxy or measured by enrollment in tertiary education, because maybe they think that secondary education is not enough to define human capital. Need tertiary education. Some may use another index, right? A pattern or research or development or labor productivity. So this human capital is just a concept. You one same concept can have different proxy to measure. Okay? Then you extend to number 3, which is what you actually want: sustainable development and institutional quality. Right? Of course, institutional quality, they got many other people done before, but sustainable development is new. In this case, the research problem is every country sign up for the United Nations, say, I want to achieve the sustainable development goal. Yes, I pledge to achieve it. But is that when the country pledge to achieve or try to achieve the SDG goals affect the actual affect the growth rate or not? Theoretically or logically, and some of the research that you can find is actually yes. Because to be sustainable, you cannot become so aggressively. You need to slow down or slow down the growth, right? You cannot pollute things. You have to install extra costs. You have to cut down all these things to survive the environment and protect. Then you have to go for income equality. All these are some restrictions that tie you up for having a so-called don't care anything economic growth, right? And then therefore, you expected the sustainable development and the growth has a negative relationship. And this negative relationship, you already have a theory called degrowth theory. But this degrowth theory is a very common claim that any factor that can cause the growth to slow down, right? But this sustainable development is a new thing, right? And some more, from few years ago until now, it's new thing. And this sustainable development goal index, I think until now might only have 7 or 8 years only. Now it's more when I do that time, we got 4 years only, right? Okay, so you see from how the extended model. So this one will be more mathematic, right? Mathematic. So GDP. This one is mathematic based on the method they use. GDP is your whenever you put on the left hand side, it's called a dependent variable. That means this GDP or gross domestic product, right, depend on this one, depend on all on the right hand side. So dependent variable. All the right hand side, we assume that they are independent variable. So there's an assumption there, right? So successful development goal, okay, this one. Okay, here in this case, you notice that these are the two main one, right? The rest is just now the slide say you mentioned that control variable. Okay, here because if you write paper, you can have only 2, right? And then moderation. So this SDG and institutional quality is the main focus that you want, whether this institutional quality and sustainable development goal can affect the economic growth or not. Okay? But you still have to put in the rest, right? I usually like to use this analogy. You see, for example, you want to watch TV movie or you watch a Hollywood movie or watch any movie, you cannot see this whole movie cannot be one actor and one actresses or only 2 actors only, right? You still need to have some supporting actors and some like just appearance, right? Or anything. You still need many people go there and work. So these are the many people, but your main actor and actresses is only these 3, right? But you cannot do away with all this one. right? Therefore, when you run the regression, you have to do all together. But when you do your analysis, when you focus on your writing, you only focus on this one, right? Why we cannot ignore this all are called control variable. Why we cannot ignore the control variable? Because if you don't put all these, you just put only y and x1 and x2, 3 variable only. The rest of this control variable, FDI, unemployment, right, capital, export, will go to error. That means your error will be very, very big if you don't have enough control variable. So when your error become very, very big, that means when your result come out, people trust it. No, right? You affect everything. So this is called under specification. It's very dangerous, right, or more serious than over specification. That means if you put too many control variable, too many lah, you put until 20, 30, still okay. Because those that are not impactful control variable, the coefficient, the beta in front, this whole the coefficient will become 0, right? Or not significant. Not significant in this case, not significant means this one becomes 0. If this one becomes 0, that means the education, no impact, 0 relationship, right? If you put too many control variables, still okay. This one becomes 0. If you put too few control variable, the impact of this control variable will now go to error. And error too big, I mean, your prediction or your model come out tend to be not accurate or not trustable. Right? So therefore, you have your dependent variable, right? The y or the left hand side. Then in this case, 2 independent variable, and in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 control variable. Okay. Then you see this one times. Time in this case mean moderation effect, or we call cross term. Right? What does this mean? This means that, okay, sustainable development goal has their relationship with GDP, okay, but the sustainable development goal relationship with GDP can be affected by institutional quality as well, right? If we get this one as positive, that means this institutional quality has a positive effect on sustainable development goal and GDP relationship. We make it simple. For example, A and B go out together, right? They are very happy. Then suddenly, you add another C join together, they may not be happy, or they get less happy, less talking, right? Or because the C maybe they don't like to hear what that's the C here, what as I see hear what they are talking. So the C become negative impact to the relationship between A and B. Or maybe A and B always go together, then you add the C, they are even more happy. The more the merrier, right? More people, more fun. So the C become a positive impact to the A and B relationship. So that is the concept of moderation effect, right? This one actually sometimes we used to see, for example, let's say this one is wages. Wages, your wages or income depend on your education, your productivity. Then we add on one more, gender. Let's say we put male is 0, female is 1. Right? Male is 0, female is 1. So if this one get negative, that means because you are female, you get negative income just because you are female. So in this case, there is a quantitative justification that they are discrimination of wages against the female. But you get positive this one, right? And 1 is female, 0 is male. That means because you are female, then you get a positive income compared to male. So there is a quantitative justification that there are wages discrimination against the male. So usually you put sometimes you use this one as for this concept lah. Or in this case, I want to see the impact of institutional quality on the relationship between sustainable development goal and GDP. That means you add together, are they affected or not? Okay. Then, of course, finding, then this stuff. Okay. Then you present in a table form. In a table form, you see, you also got test this multi-collinearity, right? Because you claim that all these variables are supposed to be independent. So you test and it's less than 5, show that it's independent. If more than 5, that means they are not independent, so you have to remove them.